So we've got Tom here. Tom's going to be taking some photos, not of you guys. Be the diva I am, it's all about me. I'm getting my website redone, so some images are going to be on that, so Tom's going to be snapping away occasionally. But yeah, it might be the back of your head in it or something, but that'll be it. Yeah, okay. Have you done the back of your hair?
I'm just like, please tell me I'm going to my head.
So for today's presentation, we're looking at about 45-50 minutes. Usually leave a little bit at the end for Q&A, so if you've got any questions, feel free to shout them out at the end. To be honest, it's not that formal, so if you have questions we're going through, you're like, what do you mean by that? Just shout out as we go. Even if there's something not in here, because I know the questions I got sent actually, the people who aren't even here. So there's a couple of questions that I've tried to include in it for the people who are maybe watching on camera later. So there's a couple of questions that if it doesn't quite answer what you asked me, just send me a message when I send this through to you later. And same for you guys. If there's a question that you meant to ask and you forgot, just shout up. Now, today we're going to be going through a few different things, just a bit of a welcome, a bit of my beat. I know you all kind of know me pretty well anyway, so that'll be a quick one. And we're going to go through a few different points, basics of nutrition, and each one I'm going to expand on a little bit as well. The balance between perfection and real life. So I'm sure a lot of you kind of know me, and you know I'm all about diet doesn't need to be perfect. We need to so a lot about what I do is about finding the balance between perfection and real life. Your diet doesn't need to be perfect. You want to kind of find that sweet spot of what you want your lifestyle to be like and making your nutrition fit into that rather than making your life fit around your nutrition. Fat loss, because someone who asked one of the questions had a few questions about fat loss really, so I've just included a whole section on it. And the key to maintaining it, their question was something along the lines of, often when I diet, I tend to rebound afterwards. So I'll go through a diet and then regaining all the weight afterwards. So it's just a couple of things I often look at, the science behind it, and then a few little tips and tricks that I often use to try and to maintain weight loss after you've done it. Sleep, recovery, and hydration, I kind of all grouped in as one. Sleep is massively important, as I know now I'm 12 weeks without it. Recovery, hydration as well. Lunch on the go, another question that we had in. People often struggle to find a lunch that's healthy and fits in with what they're looking to achieve, whether it be performance in a sport, or whether it be weight loss, or whether it's just generally trying to be healthy, grabbing a sandwich or something when you're out and about and it's not full of mayonnaise and stuff that you don't really want to be getting in there. And then office and work snacks as well. That's not something that anyone asked about this, but everyone I speak to, one of their main things that they struggle with in a work environment is there's always biscuits at work, there's always cake at work, people always bring in donuts and all sorts. So it's just a couple of things that it's a tough one that, but because I think people when they want to get rid of stuff at home, just take it into the workplace and try and get rid of it there. So there's no way of changing that. So about Axis and about me, as a lot of you will know anyway, I've been a PT for about 14 years before qualifying as a nutritionist a few years ago as well. I spoke a little bit about it there. My beliefs about your lifestyle should be balanced. People don't come to me because they want to be a bodybuilder and 3% body fat, because I would tell them that's probably not very healthy and yeah, you just don't want to do it. People come to me because they want to find like a way of living their life, having a good quality lifestyle while also maintaining maybe a body fat level, maybe maintaining a certain level of health, maybe improving certain health markers. So by health markers, I'm talking about like BMI, maybe blood pressure, it could even be diabetes or something like that. Nutrition doesn't always need to be perfect. If I've spoken to any of you about my diet, you will all know that I am very much about, you need to eat well the majority of the time, but have a burger, have a pizza, have some drinks. You need to learn how to fit them into your lifestyle rather than doing it and then thinking, oh, I shouldn't have had that pizza or I shouldn't have had that burger, because then the emotions around food are a whole other conversation, aren't they? But we often feel guilty around it, and that's something that I want to try and steer people away from, that guilt around food, and actually enjoying food and figuring how they can include it rather than feeling guilty about it. Someone else's laptop here, so the next key's in a different place than I'm used to. So the basics of nutrition. So nutrition is so as a definition, the process of consuming adequate food for health and growth. You've got macronutrients, which are your proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and your calorie intake changes based on height, weight, and activity levels. Nutrition is more than just adequate macronutrient and calorie intake though. A lot of people, when they start thinking, oh, I'm going to work on my nutrition and work on my health, they go, right, I'm going to start tracking calories, or I'm going to start looking at my protein intake, and that is part of it. But it's not all of it. It's about trying to get vitamins and nutrients in. It's trying to make your nutrition fit around your lifestyle as well. And I think a lot of people forget that because often they perhaps might be on a diet and they think tracking calories is the only way I can go. Tracking calories is going to be the answer to all this. But they don't think about how that wedding they've got in 2 weeks' time is going to fit into that when they go, well, how do you track 5 beers, canapes, a meal, and the stuff that you can't remember on the evening as well. So this is the Eat Well guide. Now this is what the government kind of recommend as a balanced diet. You've got your fruit and vegetables, you've got your typical carbohydrates, potatoes, bread, pasta, you've got your dairy and alternatives, then you've got beans, pulses, fish, eggs and other proteins, and you've got oils and spreads, and then unfortunately off the side, which isn't included, is like your crisps, sweets, treats and chocolates. Now, some of you may have heard people talk about carbohydrates in the past and saying 60% of your plate should be made up of carbohydrates. And that is true, but I think people, when they think of carbohydrates, think these carbohydrates, potatoes, bread, pasta, rather than these carbohydrates. So your vegetables, your fruits, they're all the carbohydrates that you want to be trying to include more of. And I'm not saying you don't want to include bread, pasta, potatoes, because they still have a place, but they're generally the more calorie dense stuff. So people kind of go, well, I'm having 60% of my diet as carbohydrates, so I can't understand why I'm not losing weight. And it's maybe more the calorie dense stuff rather than these carbohydrates that you perhaps want to be looking to fill more of. Down here, you've got your protein section and dairy. I'd argue that the protein section probably needs to be a little bit bigger, mainly because most people just don't have enough protein in their diet. So the general recommendations, the recommendation by the government is to have 0.8 grams per kilo of body weight for protein. And there's some kind of arguments in the sort of like nutrition and dietetics world about how politics, and you're like, how does politics play a part in that? So when the government make donations, whether it be money or food to other countries, they split it up based on what is the recommended daily amount of protein, what is the recommended daily amount of carbohydrates. Protein is quite expensive. So people kind of go, every study suggests that 0.8 grams per kilo of body weight is not enough protein. But the government are like, yeah, it's fine. So whenever they send money or foodstuffs to other countries, they send it based on 0.8 grams per kilo. Whereas in fact, every study suggests it should be a minimum of 1, if not 1.5 grams per kilo of body weight. The government won't put that on there because then that means them spending more money to send it. Whether that's true or not, only the government can answer that. And they tell the truth all the time, so we know that they definitely would tell it right. So just take a second to think, what is nutrition to you? So when people think of nutrition, everyone has a different reason for looking at their nutrition. Is it about making your nutrition work for a social life? Is it about working for your exercise? Is it about work? So just have to think about it now. I'm going to stay quiet for like 15 seconds. So I'm going to try and time it. It's tough. Think about your lifestyle and what nutrition means to you. What are your priorities with your nutrition? Is it an exercise or sport specific goal? The presentation I'm doing in the 13th of July is around exercise and sports. There's going to be loads more focused on like performance and eating well for exercise. And there's a couple of people who have joined already, like marathon runners as well. And their main question is, how can I run a marathon without feeling like I'm flagging after 5 miles? My argument, just don't do a marathon. Socializing, but still eating well. Again, lots of people worry that they go out for a meal and they kind of go, I'm just going to ruin it, so I'm just going to have whatever I can. You can still socialize, but make it fit with your lifestyle. Health-specific goals, I mentioned earlier, some managing weight loss, could be diabetes, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome as well. And do you worry about what you eat? So I'm going to keep quiet for 15 seconds, starting now. Okay, that's 15 seconds. Feels like a long time, doesn't it? did everyone think about what it means to them? And everyone will have a different reason. If anyone ever wants to share stuff as we're going through, feel free to shout it out. But you don't need to share anything. I'm never going to like turn to one of you and be like, what do you think about this? Or what do you feel like with your lifestyle about this? Now, the reason I say think about your lifestyle and what it means to you is because that will probably change the way you look at how you fuel, maybe the way you change the way that you look at dieting. It might be that you kind of go, actually, I do an awful lot of running, or I do an awful lot of swimming, or I do a lot of weight training. And you're now kind of going, actually, maybe I should look at we're going to come on to it in a second, but like look at my protein intake a little bit more, or maybe I should look at fueling a little bit better for all the long runs that I do. So on to diets. So I'm including that there's a few slides on dieting. So good nutrition is not about being on a diet. Good nutrition is about being balanced with your approach to food and drink. It's something I always say, and I think people often get sick of it. We eat well and exercise most of the time, so we don't worry when we don't. And it's like I said earlier, a lot of people will often panic about these small events that they have in life. So something's happening on a Saturday evening, and they'll spend all week building up to that and worrying about what they're going to eat when they go out, how much they're going to drink. If they have a few drinks, is that other part of the brain going to go, forget about that diet and just have a pizza? So yeah, diet is more than being on a diet. And it's one, I've got a family nutrition in 5-6 weeks time. And one of the questions I got from someone who's coming onto that one is, I'm trying to diet, but I don't want to push that onto my kids. And it's a conversation that I've had quite a lot over the years, where people worry about passing on that sort of like diet culture, like cutting out carbs, joining Slimming World, going to Weight Watchers or whatever it might be, and worrying that they're going to make their kids going, well, going to Slimming World every 6 months is normal, or being on a diet on and off for the rest of my life is normal. And one of the things I'm going to speak about on that is like using the word diet, but in a positive way. So like someone having a high protein diet and trying to encourage diet as a way that you eat rather than being on a diet, if that makes sense. Because I think people worry about the word diet and they think it's seen as a bad thing, it's seen as a negative, it's seen as a thing of like, you gain too much weight, so you need to go on a diet, rather than what the word diet actually is. It's just your diet, it's just the way you eat. So on to fat loss and the key to maintaining it. So fat loss is as simple as burning more calories than you consume. So the saying, it's as simple as calories in versus calories out, but calories in versus calories out is not that simple. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the science of it, if you need 2,500 calories a day to maintain your body weight, and you only eat 2,000, you will lose weight because your body is taking in less energy than what you need. It's like needing 10 litres of fuel to drive your car somewhere, but only putting 8 litres of fuel in. You're not going to have enough energy to get there, so you're going to have to find another 2 litres from somewhere. So going back to the calories, if you need 2,500 but you only consume 2,000, your body's going to get 500 calories from somewhere, and it will be your existing stores in your body. On the flip side, if you eat 3,000 calories a day but you only need 2,500, you're going to gain weight because your body's using 2,500 to function, to breathe, for the organs to work, for your digestive system, and to move and fidget and move your arms around like I am now. But you've eaten 500 calories more, so it's like needing them 10 litres of fuel to drive around, but you put 12 litres of fuel in your car, so you've still got 2 litres left over. So them extra 500 calories, your body's going to go, I'll just store them for later in your fat stores. So if you are, I'm going to go through the sciencey bit first about calorie intake and what you need, and then I'm going to go into a little bit more about how that can work in real life. So first we need to know how much we need to maintain our current position. So the easiest way is Google. You can calculate it, but Google TDEE calculator. It stands for Total Daily Energy Expenditure. Now that's how many calories you burn on a day-to-day basis. Secondly, we need to plan our weight loss target and time period. Now I realise if you were to do this is a really full-on sort of like, I'm going to write down all the numbers and I'm going to track my calories, and this isn't for everyone, and I'm going to go on to different dieting methods in a second. So for 1 pound of fat loss, you need a 3,500 calorie deficit. For 1 kilo, it's 7,700 calories, because it's 2.2 pounds per kilo. So that's how I work that out. So, did I put on the next slide actually? Yeah, for example. So say you wanted to lose 18 pounds. 18 pounds of body fat is 63,000 calories. And you look at that and you kind of go, that's a lot of calories. That is a lot of food. And I think people often I've heard of diets in the past when people are like, oh, I did this cabbage soup diet and I lost 6 pounds in 5 days. And people are like, oh, brilliant, so I'm gonna lose 18 pounds in like less than 3 weeks. And sure, you could do. I'm going to talk a little bit more in a second about what is weight loss and the difference between fat loss, water loss, and muscle as well, unfortunately. But if we just went for fat, so 18 pounds is 63,000 calories. So somehow you need to take 63,000 calories out of your food consumption / energy expenditure. So to lose that in 63 days, that means reducing 1,000 calories under your maintenance calories. So say it's 2,500 a day. Everyone's will be a little bit different. So that's the equivalent of cutting out about 1.5 meals a day for most people, which is a lot of food to cut out. And 63 days is not a short amount of time, is it? 63 days is 2 months, give or take. So people are like, well, why can't I lose 18 pounds in 2 months? It's because it's a lot of food to cut out. But then you're probably going, yeah, but I have a friend who lost 18 pounds in 12 days. And that's where the difference between fat loss and water loss and muscle loss come in as well. So to give you an example, your body stores a lot of carbohydrates. When you eat them, your body processes it, breaks it down to glycogen, and then stores it within muscles, stores it in the liver as well. For every gram of carbohydrate your body stores, it also stores 3 grams of water. So say for example, you were quite dehydrated and you ate 250 grams of potato and drank a load of water with it. You could be like, 250 grams of potato, that's fine, we know that's about 1,000 calories, but ignore that. 250 grams, so surely I should only gain 250 grams of body weight, whereas you could jump on the scales and actually be 1 kilo heavier. Because for every gram of carbohydrate, you've also stored 3 grams of water. So that's 750 grams of water. So your body uses that water to store it within the muscle, because it uses that water to transport it around the body. So if you were to cut carbohydrates, which a lot of people do as a dieting method, they're going to cut out bread, pasta, potatoes. They might even do something like a keto diet where they cut carbs completely, and they'll lose like half a stone in the first 3 days, and they're like, this is incredible. But what they've actually done is cut out some of the carbohydrates, so the body is using the carbohydrates stored within the muscles and the liver for energy. And because you're not storing that glycogen within the muscle now, your body's like, well, I don't need the water either, so you just wee it out. And there's been quite a few occasions over my time doing this, where people go through like cutting carbs as a dieting method, and then maybe the next time I see them, they're like, I was a little bit worried because I was just peeing like crazy for days and days afterwards. And it's just the body kind of going, well, we don't need that carbohydrates, but we don't need the water with it either, so we need to get rid of the water. And I remember having a conversation with someone last year at some point, and I was telling him about this, and he's in his early 50s, and he was like looking sort of like really sort of like concentrating on what I was saying. He's like, do you know what, Mike? He was like, I've been cutting out carbs a little bit last week, and he's like, there's 3 days where I was at the toilet for a wee, just like every 90 minutes, all day. And he's like, I'm 52, I'm thinking, this is my prostate starting to go. And he's like, and then after a few days, it just stops and went back to normal. And he's like, that makes complete sense. He was like, because I started it on, I can't remember the exact day, but I started it on the Monday. I just had 2 or 3 days of just weeing loads. But it's just his body getting rid of all that water that it was storing with glycogen. Anyway, back to my point. So if you were to reduce 1,000 calories a day under maintenance, that's the equivalent of cutting out 1.5 meals a day. So probably about half your food. To lose that in 63 weeks, that's the equivalent of cutting out 145 calories a day. So 145 calories is like cutting out 1.5 biscuits. So sure, to do it in 63 weeks, just over a year, it's a long period of time, but it's much more manageable. Now, what I would say about that is there is no wrong way to do it. Everyone's way of dieting is different. And everyone in here is probably going, well, that's definitely the wrong way to do it, Mike, because trying to cut out 1.5 meals a day is not the right thing to do. But there's maybe some people in the room kind of going, do you know what? I always skip breakfast and just snacks. So maybe if I just cut out them snacks, I could have a smaller lunch as well. So for some people, cutting that out will be quite easy, but it just depends on your lifestyle. And you've probably all had a friend who's gone, I did this diet and it was brilliant, you should try it. And they've lost loads of weight with it, and you're like, oh, it's brilliant, so if I do that, it's gonna work really well. And then you do it, and it doesn't work well. And you're like, why didn't it work? Maybe I'm just destined not to lose this weight. Maybe this is just how my body weight is. But it's because their lifestyle's probably different. They maybe never have breakfast. So, sorry, I said that. So they maybe always have breakfast. So they're doing an intermittent fasting diet where they're cutting out breakfast every day. So they're cutting out 500 calories a day just from breakfast. Whereas you maybe don't have breakfast anyway. So you're not cutting anything out. So your calorie difference is probably hardly anything. On the right hand side there, right hand side, that there is like a bar of what your TDEE is, your total daily energy expenditure. So the big bit at the bottom, your BMR, is your basal metabolic rate, basically your metabolism. Above that, you've got your NEAT, so your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. The bit above that, your TEF, is the thermal energy, no, I had a mind blank. Thermic effect of food, that's it, thermal energy. Thermic effect of food, and then your EAT is your exercise activity thermogenesis. So this big bit here is your metabolism. Your metabolism is something you can do nothing about. And we've all had a friend who kind of gone, well, I've sped up my metabolism, or my metabolism slowed down, that's why I can't lose weight. You could affect it by a couple of calories, but it's really not going to make much of a difference. Your metabolism is your metabolism. It's based on your height, it's based on your weight, it's based on genetics. Your NEAT is probably the biggest one that we can make a difference with. So your NEAT is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's the thing, if we're trying to lose weight, I always encourage people to try and increase as much as possible. So it's like taking the stairs rather than the lift. It's parking at the other end of the car park rather than looking for the space near the front door. It's going for a walk when you're kind of thinking, well, this is a bit of a grey area, because you can think, if I'm going for a walk, is that planned exercise? So is that actually you eat? But let's not get into that. But it's going for a walk when you wouldn't normally go for it. It's trying to get more activity that you wouldn't normally have. Each one of them is going to be hardly anything. Parking at the other end of the car park and walking into the gym or the supermarket might burn 10 calories. Parking at the other end of the supermarket might burn another 10 calories. Taking the stairs at work rather than taking the lift might burn another 8 calories. But if you do that with 10 different things across the day, that's 100 calories. Over the course of the week, that could be 700 calories. If you make a real effort to increase little bits here and there, you can really increase your calorie output, so the amounts that you're burning, without too much effort at all. I think a lot of people think, I need to go to the gym. Going to the gym is the only way I will ever lose weight, but it's just a part of it. It will help to it, because you're going to get stronger, you're going to get fitter, and you're going to burn calories, but it's not the only way. Thermic effect of food, you can't really do anything about. We've all heard the rumour that you burn more calories eating celery than what you actually consume. Unfortunately, that's true. It's not true. It's not true. Everyone's eating loads of celery. There is nothing that you burn more calories digesting than you consume from it, unfortunately. Maybe water, just the action of picking up the water bottle, you burn some energy, you don't get energy from water, but that's it. Thermic effects of food is something you can't really manipulate. The only way you could argue you might manipulate a little bit is protein has a higher thermic effect. So protein has a thermic effect of up to about 20%. So say you had 100 calories of protein, let's say chicken, you might burn 20 calories of that digesting it. If you have 100 calories of quinoa or tofu, you might burn about 20 calories of that digesting it, just because protein is a more complex molecular structure, so it takes more for your body to work through. And then your EAT, exercise activity thermogenesis, is your exercise. So that there, which is the smallest amount, that's your time in the gym. I think a lot of people focus on going to the gym more and more and more because they need to lose weight, they need to get fitter. And going to the gym will get you fitter. If you're getting your heart rate up, it will get you stronger. But it's not the most important part to losing weight. And I think a lot of people will beat themselves up if they don't go to the gym. So they think, I'm not going to the gym this week, so my diet's not going to go very well. But it's only such a tiny, tiny part of it. And bearing in mind, that 5% or whatever it is at the top, that's only on days that you go to the gym. So if you don't go to the gym, scrap that, and all this just moves up a little bit. So it's only a tiny amount. So going to the gym is really important, but it's not the only way you can influence your energy output. But that's also on that for quite a while. Techniques for fat loss. I'll just put a load on there. So how you achieve that is your choice. It's like I spoke on the last one. On the last slide, some of you will look at going 18 calories in 63 days and gone, yeah, I could do that. Other of you will look at it and go, well, that's ridiculous. Surely cutting out 145 calories a day would be better. But some people kind of go, do you know what? I'd rather it was just short and painful. I'm going to go for it in a short amount of time, get it over and done with. Other people will think, do you know what, 145 calories a day, it's much more manageable. I'm going to do that. And it is entirely up to you. So counting calories is one. If you go on a TDEE, I think the website I often use is tdeecalculator.net. That's one I go for. It's just really simple to use. So you can count calories. Say your calorie requirement is 1900 calories a day. We mentioned about reducing your calorie intake. Depending on how much you want to lose over what amount of time, you can just break it down from there. If you want to lose 3 pounds in the next month, you go, let's make my maths a little bit easier. 2 pounds, so 7,000 calories in the next month. You kind of go, right, so if I take 7,000 calories, divide it by 30, that's how many calories per day I would need to cut out. And you go, maintenance calories are 1900, I need to cut out 120 calories a day, so I need to be eating 1,780. You can then count the amount of calories you're eating off food labels, off Google, using apps like MyFitnessPal is one. There's one called NutriCheck, which is really good. MyFitnessPal is starting to introduce a load of paid features to it. So I think NutriCheck is starting to sort of like catch up a little bit. A lot of people haven't even heard of NutriCheck. It's always just like, if you're tracking calories, MyFitnessPal is one people go for, but NutriCheck is really good. Tracking macros is another. In my opinion, that's just another way of really tracking calories without even realizing. If you're kind of going, right, I'm just going to aim for 150 grams of protein a day. Each gram of protein has about 4 calories in it. So if you're like, I'm going to do 150 grams a day, that's 600 calories a day. And then it's just a slightly different way of tracking calories. Meal tracking and reducing, you might go, I have the same diet pretty much every day. So rather than having that massive bowl of pasta, I'm going to switch half that bowl of pasta to half a bowl of vegetables. So you're going to switch some of the higher calorie foods to lower calorie foods. That's another way of doing it. It could even be just looking at snacks. Maybe you have a mid-morning snack and a mid-afternoon snack, reducing it that way. Portion control, that's another thing that so many people ask about. Years and years when I was still living at home, I remember my mum bought these new plates, and they were these lovely fancy square plates. And for about 6 months after that, we all started gaining weight, and we couldn't figure out why. And it's because these plates were massive. And my mum's looking at it going, there's not enough food on that plate. Let's stick more on there. Because she was, the old plates that were quite small, when you filled that plate, it was fine. But she's got these nice big square plates. So in the end, we got rid of them plates because my mum couldn't not fill the plate, basically. So, yeah, portion control is another really important one. You can use things like the palm of your hand. You can get guides off Google of what a portion size should be. You can get little portion control measurers for like pasta and spaghetti, which is always a bit of a dangerous one. We've all been there where we put the spaghetti in the pan, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably a portion, and then you've got like 6 bowls full of spaghetti. But then you're like, I cooked it, I'm going to eat it. Skipping meals or intermittent fasting, it might be that you kind of go, do you know what, I'm going to cut out breakfast, or I'm only going to eat between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. It's fine. Some people kind of go, yeah, but isn't breakfast the most important meal of the day? Not really. If breakfast isn't for you, then you don't have to have it. For some people, fitting it into their routine just doesn't work. If you are the person who often doesn't have breakfast, intermittent fasting might not work for you because you might not eat until 12 o'clock anyway. So you go, ooh, I'm going to do intermittent fasting and only eat between 12 and 8. All you might do there is you might have a bag of crisps at 9 o'clock every evening, and you might cut out 100 calories on an evening, which could contribute to it, but it might not do the same as someone who always has, I don't know, bacon and egg sandwich in the morning or something. Reduced snacking, I've already spoken about. Cutting macronutrients, so something like cutting carbohydrates is one. Other specific diets, like increasing, and other specific diet, I mean keto diet, or cabbage soup diet, baby food diet, any diet that you've ever heard of. Not all of them I would recommend. Most of them, in fact, I would strongly advise against.
Is there actually a baby food diet?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, you have basically, I think there's various different ones, but it's anything between 3 and 5 jars of baby food a day.
Ooh.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That sounds too much, just thinking about
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Have you personally tested it?
No.
You should.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Not yet.
For science?
Yeah, for science. Yeah. I'll do this for you guys. Increase energy output, so more workouts, or something like your step count. So that's your non-exercise activity, so the NEATs that was going on about so much earlier. Maintaining fat loss. In theory, this is the easy bit. A bit like it's just calories in versus calories out. So by science, you just kind of go, well, to maintain the fat loss, I need to go to my maintenance calories. So when you go on your TDE calculator, whatever number that gives you, that's how many calories you need to maintain your body weight. So before, we were going, right, I'm gonna reduce calories from that. Whereas now you kind of go, I've got an extra 147 calories a day, or it might even be an extra 1,000 calories a day if you did go for that massive deficit before. In theory, it's easy. What a lot of people do wrong in that position is they go on a diet and then they're back to their old diet. So their old diet was maybe having 3 bags of crisps a day, 4 bananas, which isn't a bad thing, but when we look at just purely on a calorie point of view, you maybe then take your calories to 1,000 calories back over your maintenance. And then people regain the weight again and kind of go, I can't understand it. I did a diet, I lost weight, but why have I gone back to my previous weight? Unfortunately, most people, I've basically said this, haven't I? Unfortunately, most people go back to their old way of eating, which is what got them to where they were before. In fact, you just need to ensure you don't go above your maintenance calorie requirements, your TDEE. This may be lower now you've lost weight. So for a lot of you, I've probably spoken, there's a guy I worked with, still working with, who's lost 23 stone. His maintenance calories when we started were around 5,500, 6,000 calories a day. Now his maintenance calories are about 2,800. So because he is now a smaller person, he takes less energy to get around, less energy to move. So before, when he was just over 40 stone, he was having to use a lot of energy moving that body weight. So it's a bit like if you carried a load of weights around or something like that, you'd use more energy doing that than if you dumped the weights and then didn't use it. So as he was losing that weight along the way, he was constantly reviewing his maintenance calories because it was reducing. Now it doesn't reduce loads, that's obviously a very extreme example, but for some people it might only reduce by 100, maybe 200 calories. But it's still something to be mindful of. If you are tracking your calories and you're going for your old maintenance calories, you might be, say, 200 calories over, at which point, very slowly, your weight is just going to gradually tick up again. And we've probably all been in that situation where you're like, I've just gained like 6 pounds over the last year and I'm not really sure why. It could be something like that. It could be a lifestyle thing. Working from home for a lot of people was one. Even though people weren't exercising before, they were maybe walking from the car in the car park into the office, maybe going for a walk at lunchtime. It might have only been a few hundred calories at a time, but it would have still been something. So do you worry about the foods you eat? I've stolen that from, he's got his name on it anyway, a guy called The Fitness Chef that does a lot of stuff online. So what if I told you there were no bad foods? And this is something people often struggle to get their head around. If I was to cover up them two things there, and if you were just looking at the calorie amounts and the protein, carbs and fats, which are at the bottom, so 32 grams of protein, 151 grams of carbohydrates, 35 grams of fat versus 32, so the same protein, a third the amount of carbohydrates, and roughly the same amount of body fat, dietary fats, you would probably look at it and go, well, this one's definitely the best option, right? It's like half the amount of calories, half the amount of carbs, same amount of protein, until you bring it away and you're like, well, it's a nice healthy bowl of fruit and, let's say that's sugar, I don't know what it is, a smoothie versus a McDonald's breakfast. So if I was like, right, there are no bad foods, from a calorie and macronutrient point of view alone, the McDonald's breakfast would appear healthier. But there's too much emphasis put on clean and dirty meals. So a lot of people kind of go, oh, I'm going to try and eat clean, or I had a big dirty cheat day, or something like that. So try to refrain from using phrases like good and bad foods, and instead include all the foods you enjoy. A lot of people will, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically decide that certain foods are a bad food and you shouldn't include them in your diet. So when you do include them in your diet, you then go, I shouldn't have eaten that. And that's when people often go, do you know what, I might as well have that. As another story, another example, it's a lady I worked with who, pre-COVID, she was working in town and I saw her one evening and I was like, how's your day been? She's like, last night it's been absolutely terrible. I was like, why? She's like, my food was just atrocious. She's like, I went out at lunchtime, I was absolutely starving, and I got like one of them big share bags of minstrels, and I ate the entire thing. I was like, okay. And she's like, after that, I was like, screw it, I've ruined it. So it's like, I got home and I had a bag of crisps, and half a bottle of wine, and then I had some ice cream as well. I was like, right, so what was your food like apart from that? She was like, it was great in the morning. I can't remember the example, but say some cereal, I had like a sandwich and some fruit for lunch, and then I got the minstrels, and we had a normal dinner in the evening. And we started adding the calories up. So including that shared bag of minstrels, she was only 200 calories over her maintenance calories. So a tiny, tiny bit, because she was already in a big deficit from her normal meals. But then because she had that bag of minstrels and went, I've ruined it, screw it, she had all that other stuff, which ended up sending her to 1,500 calories over her maintenance calories. So if she kind of looked at it and ignored the fact that she thought that minstrels were bad for her, she would have just gone, I'm 200 calories over maintenance, oh well, back on it tomorrow. But because she thought minstrels were bad, she went, screw it, I'm going to have everything else. And I said to her, if you look at calories alone, why is it the minstrels that made you go, screw it, I've ruined it? Why was it not the piece of fruit? Like if you've had an apple and a banana, that's about 200 calories. So then 200 calories also send you over your maintenance. What about that savoury you had in the morning? That might have been about 400 calories. That would have also contributed you to going over maintenance. So you see what I mean with, it's not always about, if we ignore the fact that there's more nutrition in that, or more vitamins and nutrients, it's not always about cutting out these so-called bad foods. It's about including them and finding ways to do it. So it helps to improve your relationship with food and also mental health as well. I think, like I say, a lot of people associate certain foods with being a bad food and go, oh, do you know, I've ruined it, my diet's really bad. And my aim when working with people is trying to help people not feel guilty around food, which I think is much easier said than done, because lots of people do. I realise I've been talking a lot. Has anyone got any questions? No? Cool. What's happening? Check I'm not too far behind. I tend to chat. So, sleep and recovery. Sleep is massively important for everyone, including Cooper. This is Cooper, by the way,
Oh.
in the corner with reindeer. He's much, much bigger than that now. So a few benefits to sleep: sport, weight loss, weight gain, stress, general health. So sport, those getting regular and consistently good sleep saw high levels of growth hormones. These are a few studies that I've listed in here. Some people like studies, so I thought I'd put them in here. Athletes who slept on average under 8 hours per night were 1.7 times more likely to have had an injury. On weight loss, a lack of sleep in shift workers saw an increase in hunger hormone, decreased satiety hormone, and increased blood pressure. And lack of sleep, I can definitely relate to that at the moment. I find myself desperately wanting, I'm not a snacky person as such, but I'm just wanting everything. And my body's like, you need energy. You need something to keep going. So I'm like, what can I get? Should I stop at the shop and buy like a bar of chocolate? Should I get some bags of crisps? Maybe I should get like a can of Coke. And I never know, well, if I go for Coke, I'll have like Coke Zero or something like that. But I found myself over the last few months starting to think it more and more often. And even just having one night of good sleep makes a massive difference to how much energy you feel like you've got. And lower spontaneous energy intake, less snacking as well.
Can I ask, what would you recommend for, like, because obviously we're both really tired at the moment, we don't sleep, and I just crave sugar, carbs, and I can only really eat one-handed a lot because she kicks off whenever we try to eat food. So like, what do you suggest to stop that? Because it's going to happen anyway, so it's not something we can avoid at the minute. So
Yeah.
how do you do it without basically having like a massive bag of crisps, which I've been known to do a lot at the minute?
Yeah. So it's tough because unless you can get more sleep, your body is going to start craving that sugar. Ways you could look at do it is try and have higher protein snacks. So do you know earlier I was talking about protein have a higher thermic effect of food, so it takes longer for your body to digest it. So if you have more higher protein snacks, it could even be things like a protein bar, which sure it's still got chocolate on it, but it's higher in protein. So that protein bar is going to keep you fuller for longer than a normal chocolate bar would. Protein shakes, it could even be packs of chicken, it could be for plant-based alternatives, things like quinoa, soy and tofu, which are what we call a complete protein source. Trying to have them readily available, so when you're like, I just want a snack, but in your mind you're still kind of going, I don't want to go for the bag of crisps. If you've got a hard-boiled egg there that you can just grab and eat one-handed, if you've got a pack of chicken that you can just get a couple of little bits.
Sorry, what about crab sticks? Are they high in protein? Or are they like, I don't know if they're real or...
Do you know what? I don't know what the protein content is in crab sticks.
Yeah.
I've never had a crab stick.
I'm snapping them all the time, mine's not time to snap. The issue is
Yeah.
with crab sticks is that you can't have one or two, I eat a whole pack.
And I put those
Whilst
vinegar
driving
in.
home sometimes.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, it's But you think they're healthy because they sound like they are and they smell
And I
like
don't think
fish.
there's much like calories.
But you
in
just
them.
eat them like they've gone. Yeah.
So that might be a good snack then.
Could be. So I'll have a look.
Stinky snack.
Yeah, yeah.
Do stink.
Well, you mean, at least it'll keep people out of the office.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll open the door and be like, hey, come
Or
wait.
you do the cabbage soup diet, that might keep them out as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll definitely keep microwave fish.
Oh,
Can't
yeah.
get
So,
there.
yeah, I've never had a crab stick. I don't know
Lucky
actually.
you.
I'll see how much protein's in a crab stick. I have no idea. It's one of them things that it could be quite high protein, but it could also be not a lot of crab in it.
I think it depends where you get them from because some of them call them fish sticks now as well. So you don't really know what's in that,
But
do you?
mine's the-
Mm.
When I used to in Scarborough on the beach from completely
Yeah, well,
different
that's
to like
fresh.
Definitely proper
supermarket,
crab out of
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, I've got another question. You mentioned like the hunger hormone.
Mhm.
Is that affected by anything? Like, can that affect your TDEE, for example? So you could have like quite a high TDEE, but also like a high hunger hormone, or does it not work like that?
No, so your hunger hormone, ghrelin, I remember it like gremlins, like,
Sure.
which is how I remember it, gremlins, ghrelin, that's your hunger hormone. So that's released by the stomach, how do you mean, like, if
So
you're
like, for
high
example,
TDE?
because I'm quite short, my TDEE is lower,
Mhm.
and obviously I just have to accept that I can't eat as much because of that.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise I put on weight.
Yeah.
But for example, I could have something going on that increases my hunger hormone compared to somebody that's taller.
Yeah.
Is that possible? And if so, would that
Yeah.
make it even harder for me? Or
Yeah, I mean, two separate things.
Okay.
So, ghrelin isn't determined by your TDEE because you could be 10 stone heavier than you are now, and your TDEE will be much higher. Your TDEE might be the equivalent of someone who's 6'6" and 20 stone and like 20 stone of like pure muscle, like a massive rugby player or something. But ghrelin, yeah, no, it's not really. It's not really.
so would you say like higher protein stuff would help control ghrelin
Yeah.
a bit more?
So ghrelin is released by the stomach. So if your ghrelin levels are basically if your stomach's fuller, your ghrelin is going to be lower.
Okay.
Yeah. And also to do with your glucose within the bloodstream as well. If that drops really low, that triggers a ghrelin response as well. Yeah. And then there's leptin, which is like your I'm full hormone. They've found in certain studies, some people just have lower leptin levels than others. So we've all probably met someone who's like, I'm just always hungry. And it's because their body doesn't release enough leptin to be like, send a message to your brain going, I'm full, stop eating, you don't need to eat anymore. Yeah, so some people just have low leptin levels,
And can that change?
like through life.
Like, yeah, like they say that
Yeah,
if you also like, if you, I don't know, eating fast and things like that, they say that if you're eating fast, it takes longer for, is
Yeah.
that what that affects?
Yeah, so food goes into your stomach, your stomach or your digestive system then breaks it down and sends it to where it's needed, so it'll get broken down. It's like glycogen and be used as energy in the bloodstream. It will be getting sent to muscles and it'll be getting sent to fat stores as well. Once all that starts, so there's, I don't know if you mean it, but like, there's that kind of idea that you should wait 20 minutes. Yeah. So that's just like a ballpark figure of how long it'll start taking your body to start digesting the food in your stomach and sending it to where it needs. And leptin's released primarily by fat cells. So if there's enough energy getting sent to your fat cells, as well as other places, your fat cells are like, oh, hang on, we've got enough here. Tell your brain to stop eating. So yeah, so that's what it is. So sometimes it does take longer.
So it's true, you eat slower and it's
Yes, if you eat slower, you'll feel fuller sooner. So, because we've all been there where you just like absolutely wolf a meal down, and then half an hour later, like, I'm so full, why did I eat all that? But while you're eating it, you're just like, I'm starving. And it's not until half an hour later, you're like, I wasn't that hungry.
Get bellyache.
Yeah.
I eat really fast.
Yeah.
As well.
My problem is I eat when I'm full.
Yeah, same.
I push through the
I just
leptin.
do that. Come here with a bellyache. Can I just say as well, Cooper looks a bit like a croissant on that. I keep thinking he's a croissant.
Yeah.
We call
You think
it
I put croissant in the corner?
I call him a cinnamon
Yeah.
roll when he's curled up, yeah.
I put that's just a little chart that I always use about sleep requirements as well. It's just a little bit more painful for me at the moment as well. And the reason I have that on there is because there's a lot of people who often say, like, I just don't need that much sleep. I am fine on 4 hours sleep a night. Every study that's ever been conducted on people has found that nobody's fine on 4 hours sleep. Everyone performs better, whether it's like memory functions, whether it's physical performance. Everyone performs better when they hit their sleep markers. When people say, I'm fine on 4 hours of sleep a night, it's just that they've got used to only having 4 hours sleep a night. There's a guy called Matthew Walker, I don't know if you've heard of him before, I tend to bang on about him quite a lot, I think it's UCLA in America, basically he's like an expert on sleep. And he's done loads of, if you go on YouTube and search for Matthew Walker sleep, there is loads, absolutely loads of videos. He's done podcasts, he's done TED Talks, and he's just fascinating to listen to about why sleep is important. He goes into even like one night of not enough sleep can massively affect things like your immune response. I can't remember the word for immune then. Your immune response, how it affects like your hunger hormone, your ghrelin or your leptin levels, how it affects like testosterone levels in men, how it affects fertility levels. There's just so much, but yeah, I definitely recommend Matthew Walker, Sleep on YouTube. He runs like a sleep clinic at UCLA where basically gets people in, deprives them of sleep, gives them different foods, tests smokers, tests on alcohol, gets people to sleep absolutely loads and sees what the effects are, does like memory tests and all sorts of things. And yeah, it's quite fascinating really. Anyway, moving on. Hydration, because I realise I'm getting towards the end of where I'm like, have we got any questions? Target of 2 litres per day, and then add a litre for every hour of exercise completed. In warmer temperatures, this may also need to be increased. So, like last year when it was like 30, 40 degrees, definitely needs to be more. And you probably look at that going like, that's like 2 litres, 3 litres a day for exercise is a lot of water. It is a lot of water, but unfortunately that's also what your body needs.
How do you do that and actually spend time off the toilet? If I even increase to 2 litres, I'm constantly on the toilet.
Yeah.
How do you get used to it after so long?
Well, I hope so. That was the next question.
Yeah. No, you still.
Once it's flushed it out.
Yeah.
I'm
It's about
constantly-
keeping hydrated, and it's always different. Sometimes you're just going to sweat more than others. Talking about, do you remember we were talking about carbohydrates earlier and the amount of carbohydrates your body stores? So it might be that if you've had, look, do you know, like if you have a pizza, the next day you're absolutely, you're just really thirsty, aren't you? And you feel like you could drink about 6 litres of water because partly it's the salt as well that dehydrates you because, I'll tell you that in a second. So basically all the carbohydrates, your body's like, I've got loads of carbs, so I need something to store these carbohydrates, let's get some water in. With the salt, I was going to talk, did I put on here about electrolytes?
Yeah.
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 Salty sweaters.
Salty sweaters. You're all going to remember that phrase now, though, aren't you? So, in your bloodstream, if you think of it like a mixture, there's like a ratio between salt and water. So, have you ever had it where you've been doing like a really long, sweaty workout and all you drink is water, and you just feel like there's something missing? You kind of maybe feel a bit dizzy, or there's just something not right. And what that is if you imagine, say it was 50-50, it's not, but if you have salt and water levels here, now you sweat and you lose salt and water. If you only replenish with water and keep sweating, that ratio is just getting further and further out from where it should be. So that's why electrolyte tablets can be really good. On the flip side, say you have a massive Domino's pizza and it's got loads of salt in it. Now your ratio is that way. So your body's like, I need loads of water in. I need to replenish and get this balance back to where it is. So that's why you feel really thirsty after loads of salt. So when we sweat, it's a mixture of water and salt. For particularly salty sweaters, an electrolyte drink would be beneficial to replace lost salts. In summer, for every single person here, I'd recommend taking electrolytes because we all sweat in summer, whether we like to admit it or not, we sweat. And when I say salty sweaters, salty sweaters, some people in here might have had it like if you sweat and when it dries, you ever see like a white outline on it? That's just the salt that you're losing.
And is everybody's ratio different? Like salt and sweat?
Yeah, so how much people have, I mean it should be like about the same, but people just have higher salt intakes. So if you cut all salt out of your diet, that
Gives me more water.
salty sweat will
You know, you
reduce.
say you start drinking water, but it's not enough. Would that still be a feeling of I can't quench my thirst?
What do you mean in,
If you're not
Like
replacing the salts. You know, you said you're thirsty, but the water's just not enough.
oh right, I get you, no, do you know what, I don't know actually. I don't know if you have that feeling of quenched thirst, because you're still consuming water, but, so.
It's just Steve quite often does it, says, God, I'm so thirsty after he's...
It's almost
Yeah.
like getting up.
Yeah.
It makes sense actually because when your body's really clever at sort of like being able to move salt and water around between cells and bloodstream as well. So it could be that if you've kind of got your level to that point here, and your body's like, I've got way more salt than water. So actually, even if it's down here, it thinks that it's more hydrated than what it is, because it's like, well, salt should be level, so it's actually here. So your body will, basically you'll wee more. So it might be interesting, if ever he's been for like a really long bike ride or something, and then he's just drinking loads and loads of water, he might find that later he's going, well actually, I'm weeing loads, but I still feel really thirsty. So it comes something like that.
drinks loads of beer.
On a Saturday
Don't think it's
anyway.
electrolytes in beer.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So with hydration, we are always being told like 2 litres per day. We know what the goals are for water, but I don't feel that I often get told what the negatives are for not reaching it. So if we compare it to sleep deprivation, I know what the penalties of not getting enough sleep are,
Yeah.
and that encourages me to get enough sleep. But I don't really know what the penalties are to not drinking enough.
Yeah.
If I don't drink 2 litres of water a day, if I don't drink any water in a day, I still feel pretty much fine. So tell me, what is it doing to my body? Scare me into drinking more water.
Everything your body does. So if you don't drink any water or don't drink enough water in a day, and when you say don't drink any water, but you still drink like coffee.
Well, yeah, obviously, I'm drinking something, yeah.
Yeah, so you're still getting water or hydration from that fluid. So I'm not going to in here, but if you Google hydration index, you'll see that water isn't the most hydrating fluid. It sounds mad, doesn't it? But milk is more hydrating than water. Coke is more hydrating than water. So yeah, if you Google hydration index, it's quite interesting to see that. But yeah, if you drank no water at all, you definitely you would feel the benefits. But your body uses water for everything. Every single, don't quote me on every single function, but as far as I'm aware, pretty much every single function in the body, it uses water. Transportation, for conducting, like everything in your body. So
Okay. So I know you didn't mean to imply this, but why is drinking water better than drinking Coke if Coke is more hydrating?
is your question, can I drink Coke instead of water all day? No.
I know you're going to say no, but
No.
why is it?
So, one of the big things is sort of like the acidity of it. So the acidity that will damage what we're doing to your teeth is part of it. Water is just pure form. There's less processing for your body to do to get from that water that it uses to fill cells. Because if you imagine sort of like a fat cell that's got water in it, you want water in it, not Coke in it. Does that make sense? So your body's got to take the Coke, process it to get rid of all, say with normal Coke, all the syrup out of it, all the gas out of it, all the sugar out of it, and use it as just that water. Because in Coke, even though there's a lot of other stuff, there is water in it as well. So your body's got to process it a lot more to get that out of it. Does that make sense?
People not use Coke to clean the toilets?
Yeah, I've heard that as well before. Yeah, it's like well, that's I think the
That's it,
acidity
yeah.
from it.
And to cook stuff in.
Yeah, yeah.
I always notice if I've drank enough water, I always notice it in my skin. My skin always looks so much healthier after
When you
drinking
drink
a lot of
water,
water.
Yeah.
That's one of the main things that I notice.
Yeah. Lunch on the go, just a couple more slides. So it's a tough one because I realise the first one on there is be organised, and if you've got young kids at home, it's difficult to be organised because you're too busy organising them and getting that stuff sorted. Prioritise protein. So if you can prep something at home, brilliant, because you know exactly what's going into it. Often you can avoid like the oils and the mayonnaise and the high calorie stuff that's often thrown in there. Try and base your meal around the protein source. So first thing you think is, what is my protein going to be? And you might be like, right, it's chicken or tofu. And like, right, okay, so that's my protein source. Now what am I going to do with it? Is it going to be a sandwich, or is it going to be in a salad, or is it going to be in a pasta? And then go from there. And you think, right, what am I going to add to it just to give it some flavour? Like, I'm going to add some dressing to it, or I'm just going to season it. So go from there, rather than thinking, I'm going to have a sandwich. What should I put in it? Jam. Let's just have some jam. Because there's no, very, very, very little protein in it. What are your snacks? Could it be a protein-based snack? So even like I mentioned earlier, sometimes I have a chocolate bar, but I would usually try to go for a protein bar rather than a chocolate bar. Just because I'm like, do you know what? I want some chocolate, but I'm going to have some protein because I'm having chocolate and I'm also having 20 grams of protein in there as well.
So the grenade bars aren't too bad?
No. I mean, it depends where you look at it. You could be like, protein shake, 100 calories, grenade bar, 300 calories. So if you're going to have 2 grenade bars a day, then you're going to be consuming 400-500 more calories than you would having just 2 protein shakes. For similar, if not maybe you might have more protein intake with the shakes, could be one thing. It depends as well. There's been quite a few people over the years that I've worked with that have found that grenade bars affect their digestion and, let's say, regularity. So yeah, it's affected a lot of people, a lot more than I think. I say probably at least probably 8 to 10 people over the years that have
What,
said
gives them runs?
no, constipated.
Other way?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
really?
what- yeah. And when they cut them out and switch them to protein shakes, it's going to be a lot more regular.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
just something to consider. Wraps, sandwiches, salads. Organised doesn't mean boring. Wraps, sandwiches, salads. If you have this, I mean, it's fine to be the type of person who has the same thing every day. But if you find you're getting bored of it and you're more likely to be like, I don't know, if you're in town, I'm going to go get fish and chips instead. Could you just do something different, like have a wrap, have some different fillings, or have a salad and have loads of greens with it instead of just having a chicken sandwich or a ham sandwich? If you are happy having a chicken or ham sandwich every day and it's working for you and fitting with your lifestyle, that's fine, go for it. So what stops you from preparing lunch in advance? The most common reasons I hear, cost, storage, and time. So people kind of go, I've only heard the first one a few times, I'll be honest. People kind of go, oh, it gets expensive, like buying loads of chicken in for home and buying bread and things like that. So they go and buy lunch out, which is often more expensive. Storage, how do I take it to work? I've got nowhere to keep it. And time, I've just not got time. So my next thing, trying to actually redo my slides because I realised I put them in the wrong order when I saved them. So calculate how much you would spend a week on your lunch. So if you buy your lunch every day, if you go to the co-op or you go to M&S or you go to the chip shop and get fish and chips every day, how much do you spend? Half it and set that as your weekly budget for lunch next week, but prepped from home. So not just like, right, I've got £5 instead of £10 to buy lunch in town because that's not going to get you very far. The rules, all lunches must be prepared from home. If you need storage, increase it to a normally weekly spend. Go to Tesco's, buy yourself some Tupperware. We end up with loads of different Tupperware at home of like various different sizes, different shapes,
Yes.
different, like they've got little spoons in the top and all sorts. And there's basically a Tupperware or a storage container for everything. You can even get tiny little ones, stick some ketchup or mayo or salad cream on the side as well. If you haven't got a fridge at work, could you get one of them like little thermal bags with some ice packs in to keep it cold? So you don't need a fridge, you could keep it cold in there. So you could put a salad in there, and if you've got some tuna or something, you're not worried about it going warm in 30-degree heat, which warm tuna wouldn't be too tasty. Must include a main snack and a drink. Bear in mind, the drink could just be water. It could be water with just some like orange squash or blackcurrant or something like that in there, if you wanted something that wasn't just water. So, my challenge to you for the next week, or even the next 2 weeks, try it and see how it goes. If you've got Tupperware at home, you're already halfway there. If not, next time you go to Tesco's, just think about what am I going to have for lunches? What would I want if I'm trying to improve my health through my diet? Do I want to try and have more salads? Do I want to try and reduce the amount of like mayonnaise or ketchup or whatever you might feel that you're adding on there that increases the calorie density of it? Could you do something like that in a salad? I don't know why it took so long to think of that. Could you do something like that in a salad rather than have like mayonnaise in a sandwich? Have something, if you use Caesar dressing all the time, could you go for like more like a balsamic vinegar dressing to reduce your calorie intake slightly that way? Could you add more veggies? I don't think I put it in this one actually, but a challenge I sometimes use for people when I do like presentations is try a vegetable that you've never eaten before, and people are like, that's just ridiculous. And then people are like, actually, yeah, every week I just have carrots, broccoli, and cabbage. And then you go to Tesco's, you're like, what are all these vegetables? Or try a piece of fruit that you've never had before. Because like sometimes, like even Tesco's, which doesn't have the widest range, you're kind of like, well, I've never had a jackfruit, I've never had this, I've never had that. Sometimes even some of the berries, like having blackberries, people are like, I've never had a blackberry before, I've never had a blueberry.
Morrison's in town's good for that. They've got some really
Yeah.
wicked and wonderful fruit and veg.
Yeah. And sometimes just going out and like, right, I'm going to buy a vegetable that I've never had before. And yeah, there's probably loads. Probably
I
loads
think
up
I put
there.
in my vegetable drawer and I don't look in my drawer.
And then they all go
smell,
off.
like, what's that? Oh god, it's all vegetables.
We lift the top layer out
Growing
with
legs
just soft
and-
ones underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah. Final bit is office snacks. So it's a big one. Like I said earlier, a lot of people often end up taking cakes and biscuits in because they don't want them at home because they just eat them at home. So like, I'll take them to work so everyone else can eat them. Biscuits, cakes, snacks, bacon sandwiches. I did that one on there because I was speaking to someone a couple of days ago. It was like, oh, I bought the office a bacon sandwich each. And he's someone who's trying to lose weight. I was like, why do you do that? And he's like, oh, we've just been really busy at work. And he was like, yeah, that's probably not the best actually, is it? Make a plan to eliminate 90% of them. Not all of them, it's never going to happen. So it could be like, right, we are going to cut out biscuits, cakes and snacks in the office. Every Friday I'm going to buy everyone a bacon, this is what the example I use for him. Every Friday or every other Friday, I'm going to buy a bacon sandwich for everyone. You don't need to say a complete no to everything you enjoy. Could you donate them to a food bank? Just after Christmas I did a presentation for a company in York, and they were like, we must have about 15 tins of Celebrations and Quality Street. And they were like, we just end up eating them. I was like, could you donate them to a food bank? And they were like, yeah, we could actually, couldn't we?
You do want to.
Yeah, didn't want to.
Yeah.
So yeah, they ended up taking the majority of them, left 2 tins, a tin of Celebrations, a tin of Quality Street. They said they were going to keep in the office. I don't know whether they actually did this or not, but they said they were going to do it, and take the rest to a food bank. I imagine food banks were probably inundated with tins of chocolates and things after Christmas that people were trying to get rid of. But yeah, hopefully it will have gone to a good use and someone will actually eat them rather than kind of people snacking on them when they don't really want them.
Sorry, what's so bad about a bacon sandwich?
Oh, I'm just talking about like, so people would often have that as like an additional. So they have breakfast
Okay.
at home, bacon sandwich at 10 o'clock, and then they have lunch anyway. So yeah, nothing bad about it. There's no bad food, remember?
Yeah.
Yes, you get back like, what did you get from that nutrition event? All food is good. Mike said we can have chocolates and bacon sandwiches every day. Yeah, so nothing, I mean, you could look at bacon and go, do you know what? A bacon sandwich, and go, it's got protein and carbs. If you're going to go for...
I only eat fish. I'm pescatarian, but
Mm.
Steve eats a lot of like sausages and bacon, but I thought bacon was the okay one.
Yeah, I mean, sausages are fine as well. It just depends on the sausage. Some of them are just
Unless you have 3.
not what I mean. Yes.
Some of them are everything but sausage, aren't they, really?
Yeah, I remember as they used to do a pack of sausages for 16p.
Oh, don't
I
make
used to
me
like-
sick.
I wonder what's actually in that pack of sausages.
It's like when you go abroad and get a full English breakfast for €3. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
what do you actually think
Yeah,
of that?
where did their eggs come from? Guys, that is everything. Has anyone got any other questions on anything that I've put in there or anything that I've not added in there? And then we'll all leave and go home and be like, actually, I thought of this, which you can message me as well if you want.
I was going to say they're all going to toilet lots when you're drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
At least you're getting more steps in.
Exactly. Yeah.
And squats.
You can't think about that.
That's
Like,
what-
if I do,
Mother.
if I do 3 exercise classes in a day, so I'm supposed to drink 5 litres of water.
And just pop you.
Oh,
According-
goodness me.
According to the guidelines, yeah, that'd be like 5 litres of water a day.
I'd just be sat on the toilet drinking water. I would literally just be
Sorry.
sat on the toilet drinking water.
In reality, it probably wouldn't be.
For a calorie deficit, obviously you can go really aggressive or not. What would you recommend as a starting point?
So my usual start point would be it's like 20%. So if your maintenance calories are 2,000, 20% would be 400 off, 1,600 calories.
And when you're in a deficit, what gets burnt first? Is it fat? Is it water? Is it like what? Or do we just not know? Is it eventually
It could be
fat?
anything. Yeah, it'll be eventually fat. So your body goes through different energy processes all the time. So it goes from fat burning, it burns glucose. So I don't know because it's in my bloodstream. But when you, let's say an energy gel, which is basically the ones you can have if you're running a marathon, you just tear the top off, drink your energy gel. That is basically just pure glucose. That goes straight into your body. It takes virtually no digesting, and it's in your bloodstream in like a couple of minutes. If that's in your bloodstream, your body will use, your bloodstream's like a transportation system. So it takes energy around the body to use like in your legs, in your heart, in your lungs, if you're running a marathon, for example. So it's got it there readily available straight away. Let's say you were running a marathon and you didn't have any energy gels with you. You might run that marathon, and to begin with, it will use the glucose, or your blood sugars, if you like. It will use all that up first. Once it's run out of that, unfortunately, the next place it usually goes is muscle, because muscle has lots of glycogen stored within it. You know, earlier I was saying it's stored in muscle and liver, glycogen, along with 3 grams of water. So usually, unfortunately, muscle is where it goes to next. It'll burn that up, and then it takes time for your body to take fat out of your fat stores, so it uses glucose as energy. I always get this word wrong when I try and say it. So it takes fat out your fat stores, it goes through a process called gluconeogenesis, processes it into glucose, and then it uses that as energy in the bloodstream. So that there, you can see, is like the most complex way of your body doing it, so it's like, that's the last resort. But having said that, like, it's all about calorie deficit, so it's about how many calories you burn over a day, a week, a month, rather than how many you. So a lot of people kind of go, oh, I burnt 600 calories in that workout, but it doesn't matter if you ate 1,000 calories over your maintenance. Like, you will have burnt fat during that workout, but then you've replaced it later on when you've had an extra 1,000 calories what you needed.
And is there a better time of day to work out? I just thought
Like fasted
morning.
cardio. No. So the idea behind fasted cardio is you've got no blood sugar in your system because you've not eaten, like, first thing on the morning, for example, you've not had anything for 15 hours, 12 hours, whatever it might be. So your body will use muscle and fat stores. But if you overeat in calories that day, it doesn't matter that you burnt some fat in the morning, you've replaced it on the extra 500 calories over maintenance you ate later on. Does that kind of make sense? Whereas you could not exercise in the morning, exercise at 8 o'clock at night, but if you've eaten 500 calories under your maintenance, at some point your body's been using your fat stores to claim that extra energy it needs. So it doesn't matter that that workout was in the morning or in the evening, you're still eating under your calories. Fasted cardio usually is the best way to go in the morning, just because unless you want to get up an hour and a half earlier at 6 AM to have some food before you go work out. So I think that's why people think fasted cardio is the best, just because.
Yeah, I was thinking I've eaten. I'm just gonna be burning what I've eaten.
Yeah, there will be an element of that. So if you were to have porridge before you go, your body's going to start processing that into glucose and use that as energy. But then, as long as you're eating in a calorie deficit over the course of that day, or even if, say you had 3,000 calories that day, so you've overeaten your calories that day, but you didn't eat a single thing the following day, on an average over them 2 days, it's still only 1,500 calories. So you're still under-eaten on day 2. So it's kind of averaged out. So you could eat, I don't know, a month's worth of calories in 1 week, and obviously you wouldn't do this, but then not eat a single thing for the rest of the month. You would have massively overeaten and gained loads of fat in week number 1, but in week 2, 3, 4, you'll have been gradually eating away at them fat stores. So over the course of the month, you're still eating at maintenance. It's not like your body resets at midnight. At midnight, it doesn't go, right, we start again. So if you had a really low calorie day yesterday and a really high calorie day today, if it kind of averages out, it's the same amount of calories. Does that
So
kind
you
of
could
make
do
sense?
your calories for the week then and just
Yeah.
mix up your
You could
meals.
have like 2,000 calories a day. I'm going to have 14,000 calories this week. You could have
Like a weekend you could have.
10,000 calories on Saturday, Sunday, and you're left with 4,000 calories for the rest of the week, if you wanted to do it that way.
200 Monday to Friday.
Yeah. So yeah, you could do it that way. That could be an option if you wanted to. It's a phrase I often use, like weekend warrior, people who eat loads, drink loads on weekends. And there's with that, you can kind of go, well, your calorie week doesn't need to start on a Monday. You can start your calorie week on a Friday and be like, I've got 14,000 calories for the week. If I eat 11,000 on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, tough, I've only got 3,000 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if you wanted to do it that way, you could do. Because some people were like, right, I'm going to start my calorie week on a Monday. I've got 14,000 calories. They eat 9,000 Monday to Friday, or Monday to Thursday, for example, and like, oh right, I've not got enough calories because I've got 2 meals out, a lunch and a night out drinking. And they go, oh, well, there's no point then, is there? So yeah, just it's different for everyone. Some people maybe have more lunches with work and they need to do it that way. Yeah.
I've got a question. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get it out properly. And it might be more spots. I'm tired. I'm out last night. I'm tired. Leave me alone. So I keep seeing these things mainly, and I'm going to say it mainly on Instagram. All these like fitness people, and they're saying they eat like they're the size of me and eat 5,000 calories a day, but they still, because their body's used to it and used to. Is there any sense in that? Can you like up the amount your body, you like we were on about like your BMR and stuff like that?
Yeah, so like on that BMR, so if you burn more calories through exercise, so say let's say you were 9 stone and 5'3", and you exercise twice a week, your maintenance calories might be 1900 a day, for example, and that's just how it is. Like the amount of calories your body needs as a 9 stone, 5'3" person is not a lot. But if you suddenly increase that to 14 workouts a week, your maintenance calories increase massively. It's like having a car and sticking 15 litres of fuel in because you just go to and from work every day and that's it. And all of a sudden you're like, I need to drive to London every day. You're gonna need to stick loads more fuel in. So like if you only had 2 workouts a week and the rest of the time was just like wandering around and just living life, you wouldn't need that many calories. But if all of a sudden you kind of go, I'm doing 14 workouts a week, your body would need loads more calories. So yeah,
I don't
it's
think
these.
they're talking about upping their thingies though. They're basically just saying.
Oh, in which case it's rubbish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did think that, but I
Yeah.
keep seeing loads of different. Courtney Black's one at the moment that keeps talking about it
Does she?
and saying you increase it by 5% a day. The amount your intake is, and your body gets used to eating that and processing it. It's on quite a few of Instagram.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? I'll pick it up.
Yeah.
For you. I
Send
thought
it
it was rubbish. I just thought I'd.
Yeah. So
Who was that?
Courtney Black, I used it for a lot through
Yeah, yeah.
through lockdown, didn't I? I used it for a
I
lot
think
of
Courtney
workouts.
Black's brilliant at exercise, like workouts.
Yeah.
not
But the
something
food
that
stat,
you
yeah, I've heard that a few times.
Yeah, that's
She's
not
really
true.
pushing this at the moment as well.
Yeah.
She's really, it's on Instagram.
Yeah, that's just not true.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, your body can't be like, oh, all of a sudden I know how to, because it is just like, it's like if you stuck an extra 50 litres of fuel in your car. If you do that every day, eventually you're going to have back seats full of petrol cans and passenger seats full of petrol cans. Your body isn't going to go, oh, I can just use more fuel now. This is brilliant. Your body, the car will just keep using the amount of fuel it needs.
Yeah.
Same with your body, unless you suddenly start doing 20 hours more workouts a week, you're not going to burn more calories, more energy. Yeah, so that's not true. There's something that's starting to grow more and more at the moment is, if you heard like Tim Spector, there's Dr. Tim Spector's one, Michael Mosley, you've probably heard of as well, he's starting to get on it a bit, about eating certain foods before you eat carbohydrates, because then your body won't absorb the carbohydrates, which isn't true either. But there's so many people asking me about it. I think it's like Michael Mosley, and he's on TV.
Just don't complicate it as well. Then
Yeah.
people get so confused.
And he was a doctor, but he was struck off for misinformation, but he still calls himself Dr. Michael Mosley.
Well, that says it all then, doesn't it, really?
But yeah, a lot of the stuff that he puts out is just like terrible information.
Also, you said at the start, the vegetables are carbohydrates. I've never thought of them as carbohydrates.
Yeah. So when you think I need to fill my plate with carbs, think veg, not pasta and potatoes. But then again, if you were prepping, this is going to be more sport specific, like for 6 weeks time. If you were prepping for a marathon, for example, having loads of pasta will be better because it's a high density of carbohydrates. So again, it's something. Yeah, so it's something I was going to talk about more, but well, in the sport specific one. But like if you're carb loading for a marathon, or like Steve going to like go biking for a weekend, a lot of people are like, right, I'm going to go to Bella Italia and have a massive pasta dish the night before. But the amount of carbs you probably need for that marathon, for example, or that weekend, you can't absorb in one dish. So you need to do it gradually over days beforehand. And if you did have enough carbs in that one dish, it would be a lot of pasta. More than your stomach could take in that one. So it's better just to do it gradually over a few days. Yeah, having like a kilo of pasta and then running a marathon the next morning would be good.
Cool.
Right, guys,
Awesome.
well done.
Thank you.
If you've got any questions, feel free to send them on. You'll get an email after this as well, when I send it, which will have a link to do a review as well. So if you could review it 5 stars, obviously, then it just looks better for me as well.
Do you get a prize?
Yeah,
You get the prize.
leave me a 5-star review and you'll find out. Find out. Decide what the price is.
You know, when you do the family one,
Yeah.
it might be a bit cheeky. Can I bring my daughters or not?
Yeah, go for it.
The teenagers, they're not like.
I was just in
I know,
2 years
yeah.
old, just gonna go all over the
3-year-olds
place.
running around the place.
They're 16 and 14, but one of them's bloody terrible at eating.
Is she? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I sent you an email a few days ago, a couple of days ago maybe, it might have gone into your junk mail, just saying if you've got any questions, send them on to me beforehand and I'll make sure I include them in the presentation. Not like, oh, like, Katie asked me this. But I like, do you know, like there's a few things in the slides that I know people asked who will probably watch this later. Yeah, because then it'll actually make it more relatable to your daughters or
Yeah,
whatever
one
it
of
is.
them's, she's quite good, but
Yeah.
the other one's terrible.
Yeah. She'll be watching it just like, Mum, have you been telling Mike about what's yeah.
Can we have this conversation?
Yeah, yeah.
Who says anything about that, I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks.
Yeah, very well.
Thank you.
It's guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Better go give Nicola a
I've had my
top
kids
like
messaging me saying, can you bring McDonald's back?
this one.
Do you want me to?
I can't after that now, can I?
Oh yeah, please, hold up, please.
You gonna give us a plank to finish?
Blank to, yeah, blank to finish.
Amazing. Amazing.
Oh,
I've still got a wristband and I've just realised.
Oh yeah, I was good.
Oh, amazing. I'm still buzzing now from it.
Where did you go see it?
Manchester Etihad.
Oh, that makes
It was incredible. Like the most incredible thing I've ever seen. It was just
Feel free to keep the pens as well, guys. Spread them around the place so people are like, ooh, what's actually blank?
Yeah, it's not like this is a life thing, no.
If anyone wants any more,
I've got videos of it, honestly, it was.
But I've heard so many times about this, like an hour of exercise, an extra litre of water. But why? Because I've suddenly just thought about that. That's a lot of water, isn't it? You're not I might feel like I'm sweating out a litre of sweat, but I'm not. So where's all that water going?
Well, some of it will just evaporate as well. And it is like an average, everyone's different. So some people will, like all people sweat doing hardly anything, do they? So some people will have a workout and just pour with sweat. Some people do a workout and barely get a bead on. So everyone's different. So a litre for every hour is like a average. Like if everyone goes for that, some people will be massively overhydrating, some people will be underhydrating. But it's just like a guideline, really.
Okay, but it is to do then with with sweat primarily.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like your body's using the water in some other way while you're exercising. It is sweat.
Yeah, it is sweat. But yeah, so yeah, you probably, I mean, it might not be a litre that you actually get like in your clothes, but a lot of it's evaporated through breath and off your skin as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Alright, thanks, bye.
Thanks,
On.
bye.
See you on the next one, Katie.
Oh, we're on next one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna leave
Women's
that.
health.
Helen?
Women's health one.
Yeah, that I really want to come to it as well.
Yeah. I think
What's the
it's
next one, sorry?
Women's
Women's health.
health.
Women's health and nutrition.
I'll grab your paperwork if you want.
Yeah, definitely. I will.
I think about 10 people signed up still already, so that's good.
I'll be about menopause.